waiting for you. One by one we will take you.
It's a top five.
It's a top five.
Welcome to another top five, David. How excited are you?
I'm so excited because it's science fiction. So of course I'm excited. Yes.
I wonder if I went back in the past, if I'd still be excited.
Have we done this before? How many times have we done this before?
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
You've opened up a Pandora's box.
Yes. Or a paradox.
It's a paradox. Oh wow! Don't get stuck in those. We don't like those.
I know, but they have. It's so risky when you're dealing with the time travel movies, which is the topic of our top five today. And since this is the Johnny Has the Keys top five, you're not only getting 5, you're getting 10, because you're getting both Tim's opinion and my opinion about what we consider the best time travel movies of all time.
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
Actually, I may change my mind in a few minutes.
Well, I don't know. We change all the time. And for those of you who follow us anyway, you already know. But those of you who don't, Tim and I don't discuss this prior. So we don't know what we're going to say to each other about this. So it'll be interesting to get each of our opinions.
Yes.
Do you want to start with number 5?
Yes, I will start. My number 5 is The Time Machine, 1960. The H.G. Wells adaptation with Rod Taylor, Yvette Mimieux, and Sebastian Cabot versus The Morlocks.
The Morlocks.
I love this movie. I watched this movie not long ago for just a genre week topic for one of our podcasts. And I don't know. I've loved this movie since I was a little kid. I just love the fact that he could sit in that chair with the big fan behind him and go other places in time, into the future, into the past. It's also Rod Taylor, who I had a little crush on when I was a kid. And I'm sure a lot of men out there liked Yvette Mimieux as well.
Yes. Well, and I don't know if you watch Big Bang Theory at all, but there's a great episode of Big Bang Theory where he buys the chair. He buys the time machine.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they put it in his living room. And the whole episode is about him thinking, would it really work? I mean, could it really work? It's really a great, funny episode. So you can look it up. It would be worth it. Yeah, I think you would like it. I struggled too. It was on my list at one point and I took it off and it was on, because it is such a classic. And not only the film, but going back to the novel from, from the late 19th century. It's just a good example, but I didn't pick it for mine. So my number 5 is one that you probably haven't seen. I would think it's called Edge of Tomorrow.
I haven't. That's a Tom Cruise movie.
That is a Tom Cruise movie. And he's actually good in it, actually. It does work for me. Directed by Doug Liman. Doug Liman also did another time travel movie that I don't think we've covered in the podcast, but we might have. Jumper. Which
I've heard of it,
is an okay time movie, except that it has Anakin Skywalker in it, so it sucks for that reason.
Christensen,
Hayden Christensen, but director Doug Liman also did Bourne Identity, the first one. So
I love that movie.
Good director, great action, everything. This is a really cool story, and part of my criteria, let me just say that before we start and go into 4, it had to be integral to the plot. It couldn't be just we discover that we're in a different time, or, the time just happens to change as we do it. It has to be integral to my storytelling. It's not a big reveal, or it's not time travel just happened. So that was kind of how I had to break mine down, was time travel was important to it. Make sense?
It does, but I'm not sure how that's going to apply to my number 1.
Well, you didn't have the same criteria, so it's okay.
No, but not necessarily. Mine are mostly older, though, and not newer, like Edge of Tomorrow. So.
What's your number 4?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
My number 4 is definitely not going to be on your list, and it is Star Trek: The Voyage Home. I love this movie. I can watch this crew go anywhere, good or bad. And if they want to go back and save the whales in 1986, I'm there for it. So, and you know what?
Whales
if anybody can go back in time, it's James T. Kirk, and you know that. You know it's true.
Yeah.
So I love it.
It was on my original list. I got to tell you, it was.
Well, you
just
know,
because.
it's also probably a fan favorite because it was probably the most popular Star Trek movie there's ever
It was
been.
the most popular. It wasn't the best, but it
No,
was the most popular.
but it is the most popular.
My number 4 was very popular and has spawned a ginormous franchise out of it. It is James Cameron's original Terminator, because Terminator it's a great time travel story, from having the picture and that little coda at the end where the boy takes the picture and she keeps it and all that, all the little gimmicks about it. The whole plot is centric to time travel, and it sets up this incredible, great franchise that's come from that. So that's my number 4.
Guess what my number 3 is?
What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Terminator from 1984 as well.
Yes.
And I agree with you on everything you said about it, but I would also like to add that it's a slasher film disguised as a time travel thriller. So, you know, there's basically Michael Myers stalking through the city looking for Sarah Connors and killing everybody in his path.
That's true.
That's why I like it.
Yeah. My number 3 is Avengers Endgame, because they just did time travel very well. It was a great idea. It was a great way to do it. The fact that they even have the great scene where they're all talking about, well, don't do anything in the past because it'll affect the future. And they go, no, that's all crap. No, because don't you know that if you go back in the past becomes your future. And
it's
trying to
very
explain
confusing.
it to Ant-Man, and Ant-Man's going, what? And finally he goes, wait, so all that stuff about Back to the Future and thing was a bunch of bullshit? Is that what you're doing? So yeah, and I even love, you know, the fact that time plays such an important role in it that it allows Captain America to do his final story arc at the very, very end. He actually, when he's supposed to return the stones, he takes his time and has his entire life with Peggy before he comes back. And that was a nice touch, I thought. But yeah, time travel, very important. Yes. Number 2.
Why are you torturing me like this?
My number 2 is 12 Monkeys.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, big surprise there. We've already covered this movie on our podcast. This story is not many time travel stories are extremely logical. This story has its problems, but I love it because of the sheer chaos. It's what I mentioned when we did the podcast.
Yep.
It is a Terry Gilliam directed movie, and it is exactly what you think it would be. Starring Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. Crazy little film. Apocalyptic too, which is a plus for me.
Yep.
So that's my number 2.
My number 2 is one of my favorite movies. Some people might call it a guilty pleasure. I call it a favorite movie, and I love it. It's called Somewhere in Time, by Richard Matheson. It was directed by Jeannot Swalk, and I think it was one of the few movies he directed. I only think he did like 2 or 3. But I fell in literally love with this movie from the first time I ever saw it, and can watch it over and over again. I love the fact that they don't get bogged down in the technical mechanics of temporal displacement or of, you know, of going back in time. Basically, he wills himself to go back in time. But it has some great twists, some great Matheson dialogue, some great acting with Christopher Reeve, and it's just it's one of my favorite movies ever. So there you go.
My number 1 was your number 1 on another top 5, and it is Planet of the Apes, 1968. Yep. And like you said, this is kind of a reveal. You don't really understand that until the very end of the movie. However, it packs a punch. It's Rod Serling's take, a very Twilight Zone take on the Pierre Boulle novel, where, you know, Charlton Heston and his astronauts crash on a planet that is dominated by intelligent apes, and it ends up, the time travel twist being Earth in the future, and that man has regressed whereas apes have progressed. And it stars the wonderful Charlton Heston, Roddy McDowall, Kim Hunter, and Maurice Evans.
It was in my list until I did that criteria. And I said no, because it was so hard to pare it down. I had like 8 in my freaking top 5, and it was so hard to pare it down. So finally I just said, okay, if time travel is not important to the story, because then I'm not going to do it. So it is my number 1 honorable mention is Planet of the Apes, just because the time travel twist, you realize the entire thing you've been watching was a time travel story.
It's funny that you said
Right.
that. My only criteria was that it needed to be sci-fi or horror, because there are time travel movies like Somewhere in Time that I love that are not really sci-fi or horror.
Okay, interesting.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's why I went there.
So my number one is not sci-fi, is not horror, but I do consider it sci-fi. And that's when you're talking about what is the ultimate time travel movie and what could it be? Mine is Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah.
Just because not only did it build the franchise of the trilogy, but it's a very well told time travel story. And it has its own little hooks and stuff and twists that work through it. And it stays pretty true to its own, to what it sets up. Even the other two movies, the sequels to it, do as well. Robert Zemeckis, it's a brilliantly done time travel movie.
Yeah, I considered it. And then I thought it's kind of a comedy. And I'm like, I'm not going to put Bill and Ted in there or Groundhog Day. You know what I'm saying? Because those could be in there too. Technically.
Well, yeah. And they're on the list. You look at time travel movies, you're definitely going to get Bill and Ted. You're going to get Groundhog Day. You're going to get Time After Time, Voyage Home. All of
Hot
those.
Tub, whatever. Yeah.
Peggy Sue Got Married. That's a time travel story.
It is, and I like that movie too. Yeah.
Any honorable mentions you had? I told you mine. My first number one was Planet of the Apes.
Okay. Well, my first number one is Army of Darkness.
Oh, yeah.
You got to get Sam Raimi and the Evil Dead trilogy in there somehow, and I did it with this movie because Bruce Campbell playing Ash goes back in time to the medieval ages, and so does his car and his chainsaw.
This is my boomstick. Yeah. My other honorable mention is Arrival, which was on my list as number 2 until I did that criteria.
Yeah.
Because it's not integral to the plot, but it is like Planet of the Apes. It's that reveal at the end when you realize, oh my gosh, I'm in a different time frame than what I thought. And so time travel really isn't a plot point, but it is a story plot that's really good. If that makes sense.
Yeah. My other honorable mentions are Somewhere in Time, which you already claimed as one, and a movie with our friend Malcolm McDowell called Time After Time. That's the one where he plays H.G. Wells going back in time to catch one of your favorite people, Jack the Ripper, who I think is David Warner, isn't it?
Yep. David Warner.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been a long time since I saw it, but I still remember it.
A little dated. It's a very 80s kind of feel to it, but it looks, but it's a cool story. It's a very cool story. And my last honorable mention is actually a TV. It is probably my favorite episode of Star Trek in any iteration of the series and it's Yesterday's Enterprise from Next Generation. It is a brilliant, brilliant time travel story involving Picard and the Enterprise and a previous Enterprise. And it's really well told and well done story.
It's called Yesterday's Enterprise?
Yep. It's called Yesterday's Enterprise.
Interesting. I have 3 others that I wanted to mention, but they're not really time travel movies. They're movies I would call where characters are unstuck in time. One of them, it literally starts with that sentence, and it's Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut.
Great movie. Yeah, great book.
It's basically a guy named Billy Pilgrim is bouncing around in time and he can't control it. So that's not really, I guess it's time travel, but it's a different kind of time travel. And a very similar movie that I absolutely love that is very hard to categorize is a German film by Tom Twyker called Run Lola Run.
Run Lola Run. Yes.
Yeah,
excellent.
She basically wakes up and tells you get 20 minutes of her life like 3 different ways. Love that movie. And then
Groundhog Day would be one of those.
That's the other one. Groundhog Day is the third one.
Well, my other one in that genre, in that kind of subgenre, would be Time Bandits.
Okay,
you know, Time Bandits, they were kind of unstuck too and trying to get back, sort of thing. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So those are my honorable mentions. I had 3 bonus ones. Sorry.
Yeah. I found a few when I was doing the research that I haven't seen yet. So they've gone on to my big must-see list. One of those was Primer.
Yeah, I saw that.
And the other one was Source Code, the one where they can send the guy back, but he only has like 10 minutes or 8 minutes in the past kind of thing. And he has to solve the mystery of why the train exploded. So that should be
that's Jake Gyllenhaal, isn't it?
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was our top 5/top 10 time travel picks from me and David here at Johnny Has the Keys. We'd like to thank all of y'all for joining us today for this little short take we have for you. And we hope can see you in the future. You can find our regular show, Johnny Has the Keys, on the same channel as this YouTube channel, where you can subscribe and like us down below, or you can listen to us on the airwaves in the podcast land.
Yes.
And until our next top 5, I'll be seeing you, David.
See you then.